We have an important story today. The White House worked with YouTube to censor COVID vaccine quote unquote misinformation, House Judiciary says. This is honestly not a surprise. They worked with um, Twitter to censor election information, the Hunter Biden laptop, and other important information. So this is not surprising. Um, but it is a little bit surprising at how blatant it is. So here we go. The Biden administration worked together with employees of Google-owned YouTube in 2021 to target alleged misinformation relating to COVID-19 virus and its vaccinations, uh, according to documents obtained by Fox Business. Documents were acquired through the source close to House Judiciary Committee and reveal a level of correspondence previously unknown to the American public as Biden and his aides sought to promote coronavirus vaccinations in efforts to quell the raging pandemic. The campaign was led by former White House Director Digital Strategy Bob Flaherty, who has since left the administration to help Biden's 2024 re-election campaign as deputy campaign manager. Well, it looks like he got a raise and was promoted. There's some level of corruption there. Flaherty emailed Google team in April 2021 to connect about the work you're doing to combat vaccine hesitancy, but also crack down on vaccine misinformation, according to documents. When I think of this, I wonder who's defining misinformation. You don't want the government to be defining misinformation because it could be swayed by one political party. You don't want any single uh, single single person or entity to decide what is misinformation, because then there would be no proper debate and communication. What should actually happen is we should allow doctors to debate these things, like a lot of them were in during April 2021. But because of that, now many of the doctors were censored. This happened on Twitter and here on YouTube. On YouTube, causing there to be no debate on medical information and medical issues. This actually results in worse information for overall people. Also, the freedom of speech is the best way to fight misinformation because the good information will eventually prevail. So, fighting, so them censoring vaccine quote unquote misinformation is actually worse than not doing it and allowing proper speech and freedom of speech on debates and issues like the vaccine. And then let's see. Flaherty continued to ask for trends surrounding vaccine misinformation on the website while offering government assistance in form of COVID experts at the White House to partner in product work with YouTube. Google, in an internal email, noted that after a subsequent meeting with Flaherty, the White House staffer particularly dug in on decision making for borderline content, which is content that doesn't cross community guidelines, but rather brushes against it, according to YouTube. So they're pushing for YouTube to actually go beyond their community guidelines and actually censor people that didn't violate any rules. And if you didn't know this, quote unquote medical misinformation is in the community guidelines for YouTube. So the government and Biden's administration was working to censor even more speech than what YouTube is already doing. And some of those community guidelines is probably actually already pressured by the White House. What I think YouTube should do, and what I think would be better for all political debate in the world, is if do what Musk is doing right now with X. Allow all political conversation as long as it's not threatening someone or inherently bad, like graphic and stuff like that. But otherwise, you should be able to debate anything. Um, this will actually result in more speech and better communication between people. If people feel like they're being censored and not being listened to and actively having their voice being dumbed down and um, not mattering, people they will actually get more radical, more extreme. So that is actually one of the reasons that there's been polarization because and some elements of the Republican Party has moved so far right. By doing this, they're actually causing more harm and more likely to be other riots by conservatives and Republicans. Um, Also, just not allowing proper debate. Here it says a week later, Google acknowledges it sent the White House a total amount of videos removed from COVID vaccine for COVID vaccine misinformation while discussing the government's desire for even more data. This is sort of an invasion of privacy because they're sending all the videos removed by YouTube, by people that posted it. So this is sort of invasion of privacy too. And then it says, really, Flaherty's interest was in what we're seeing is not coming down. Reads an internal Google email between employees, seemingly referring to videos that had not been removed yet. So they're wanting to remove even more videos and videos that are even slightly criticizing the vaccine for possible issues. And because of this, it makes things worse. Next day, YouTube's government affairs team emailed YouTube's product flagging and interactions with the White House. There's a high degree of interest coming from the White House now regarding vaccine misinformation, vaccine hesitancy, and our work around borderline content. The internal email from YouTube read. Unfortunately, the role in tech addressing vaccine hesitancies is to come under a massive spotlight, particularly as the supply of vaccine outcomes the outpace of demand. As April 2021 correspondence added. Now on the vaccine, I personally did not get it because I'm so young and I didn't really need it. There's a very, very, very low chance for me to get it, but you should be able to decide on your own, not without YouTube with YouTube censoring all the information. You can't properly decide on your own, so you can't act. So it's actually causing more damage and even more damage to medical practices and medical things. Also, I don't really think YouTube should be defining what is medical information that is false. Again, doctors should be doing that because YouTube should not be. They're not a medical company. They're not actual doctors, so they shouldn't be debating, and they shouldn't be censoring other doctors and other people's speech on the issue. Now they probably do have a team of doctors, but those doctors could be wrong, and other doctors should be able to debate each other. Also, with all this information here, I think that the government has probably sent even more stuff to YouTube asking for other quote unquote misinformation with other topics to be removed. They probably asked YouTube to remove stuff on Hunter Biden laptop story and other election stuff. They also probably did removed other information relating to other issues in politics. So yeah, this doesn't just go to medical information. It probably goes to every single other area in politics. Um, and if this keeps happening, there will soon be very limited freedom of speech in the U.S. And because of this, I think Biden's administration should be impeached immediately. They've tried to violate the freedom of speech of literally everyone in the U.S. On those platforms. They tried to violate it with Twitter. They tried to violate it with YouTube. They tried to violate it with probably other platforms. Now, um, so Biden should be impeached immediately, and maybe, if the evidence does prove everything, should be removed from office. Um, Now, there are arguments that he technically didn't violate freedom of speech because of um, because YouTube is a private company, but by pressuring YouTube and using government power to influence private companies to remove speech from other people on the internet, in my opinion, is removing freedom of speech, and thus should not. Um, Thus, it is a violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution, and then thus he should be impeached. Now, even more information. A week later, an update was presented to YouTube's government affairs team, writing the product team to inform them of the discussions between YouTube and the White House. Over the last several weeks, YouTube's Google and YouTube's GAAP team have had conversations with the White House staff on YouTube policies, and all great work that has been done to raise authoritative information and fight harmful misinformation related to COVID-19. The email stated. Government affairs team then asked if YouTube's team would meet directly with the White House staff to highlight their efforts, because the White House staff continued to have questions and on the have questions on the race to reduce efforts, race/reduce efforts related to supposed misinformation. The email continued imploring the product team to meet with White House as it could be beneficial for a future working relationship. The White House should not be meeting with companies to limit information being presented to the public and limiting information being presented to possible voters. This is direct election meddling, direct election meddling, and meddling with the freedom of speech of the U.S. And I'm so glad that Jim Jordan has shown these files. It provides even more evidence for government collusion with big tech and tech to limit the freedom of speech of people in the U.S. And it says we believe having some opportunity for you both to share a common background will be hugely beneficial as we see to work closely with the administration on multiple policy fronts. So it's not just vaccine. It said multiple policy fronts. So again, they're probably doing it on medical information, election, quote unquote, misinformation, quote unquote, misinformation for other things, like crime and borders and wars across the world. So it's not just medical information. It's probably more than that. It says the revelations of the documents between the White House and Google have come roughly a year after the original Twitter files were released, sparking a national debate on freedom of speech online. My opinion on freedom of speech online, it should be almost absolute, excluding personal threats and graphic videos, particularly none of that towards kids. Um, that's that would cause a whole bunch of other problems. But otherwise, besides that, any political topic, any political debate, there should be no censoring, because then we can't reach the solutions that everyone can agree on, because you're not getting everyone's opinion, everyone's uh, facts, everyone's things that they have to share. You're not getting all of that when you censor, thus making it harder to do anything good. Um, Speaking on the interactions between YouTube and the Biden administration, House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan of Ohio told Fox Business, "We knew the Biden White House worked to censor American speech with the help of big tech. Internal documents from Google obtained by the Judiciary Committee and Select Subcommittee show that their scheme extended to YouTube. It's and it probably extended more, and they have not released that information yet. But in my opinion, they probably done even more collusion. This combined with the Twitter and YouTube and possibly others, um, there's been massive free speech violation from the Biden administration. Then the committee will continue their critical investigative work to protect Americans' First Amendment rights and put an end to the vast government censorship enterprise. There is a vast censorship enterprise, and we would have to dismantle the FBI, NSDA, and we'd have to get someone in that wouldn't censor. That might be Trump, it might not be. But all I know is that it's not Biden and not a Democratic person in the Democrat Party, because they are the ones doing the censoring right now. And the First Amendment speech right now is the most, well, second most, only to the right, a right to life, is the First Amendment is the second most, seconded by the right to life, which is the most important. The freedom of speech is the second most important right in the world. It allows you to have speech on other rights and other issues. And without this, we wouldn't have democracy here in the U.S. The two journalists involved in the Twitter Files productions, and then after this came out, we have some additional news. Two journalists involved in the Twitter Files publication, Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger, are set to appear Thursday before the Jordan Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of Federal Government on Capitol Hill. The hearing will examine federal government's involvement in social media censorship, as well as recent attacks on independent journalism and free expression. Also, this is a violation of this many other. This is a violation of freedom of the press too. When the Twitter Files came out, the Biden administration did, I believe, threaten Matt Taibbi and other journalists, thus violating the freedom of the press, which is another important thing in the First Amendment. In this statement, with YouTube spokesperson told Fox Business, Fox Business of the Judiciary Committee's findings. While we receive input from the governments around the world, we apply our policies independently, transparently, and consistently, regardless of the speaker of political views and expressions. This is not 100% true. If the government were to threaten YouTube, and which they might have in this situation, they would not act independently. They would bend the knee. And they're probably bending the knee now, because if you see the YouTube guidelines, they do have quote-unquote vaccine misinformation, which was probably put there because the government pressured them to do that. So they do not act completely independently. Now, I will admit that there's probably also other governments that do that, and pressure YouTube, but the American government should not. The only thing that the American government should do on pressuring YouTube is to keep free speech open and um, limit other governments' involvement in social media. They That's the only thing that they might be able that they should do. Otherwise, they shouldn't do anything because it's just a violation of the First Amendment. Um, so, this is a giant piece of news, and I think that this will lead to even more news coming out in the future, and I think that this will be, and because we have control of the House, we're going to see information coming out over and over and over again about this, and I cannot wait for the next year. It's going to be crazy. Uh, so the Gen Z conservative, and this is the end of today's episode, and I will see you next time.